Football for me, it means people. Everyone who's involved for the right reasons. They want to play because they love the game, they want to be involved, and it brings connection between everyone, whether it's standing on the sides, whether it's in the crowd, just watching and not playing.
And with football being for everyone, whether you're a coach, a player, an aspiring player for the future, someone seeking a scholarship, a teacher, a youth worker, a professional, a volunteer, someone seeking to get involved in the game, a volunteer parent, whether they're reflecting on their journey and how they can understand their grassroots team, an aspiring academy coach yourself, no matter what and no matter where you're listening, this podcast is really for you. On the Reflective Coach podcast, there are so many wonderful guests that feature on a podcast, whether this is former professionals, current professionals, and professionals of all backgrounds within the Coaching Insight series that really inspire, understand, support, and are reflective amongst this journey as they share their own insights, experiences, their own journey, their own reflections, strategies, insights, and other stories into the Reflective Coach podcast. Each week features a new guest, and each new guest brings something new to the podcast. I've been so lucky to have so many wonderful guests on, and you can really listen to all the episodes on Spotify, YouTube, and Podcast Addict, with continuous updates on Twitter and LinkedIn. By subscribing, commenting, following, engaging with all the posts amongst social media, you can really keep up to date with all the episodes.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, especially, I always say that the team that I had, the very first team, that could have been the end for it. It could have been the beginning and end, because if they weren't the girls that I had, if they weren't the age group, if they weren't the right team, I might have left that day and just said, no, it's not for me. And I might never have considered coaching again. And I mean, I work in sport development now. I really don't know where I would be without it, because I didn't get on the sport course at A-level. Yeah, I had all male coaches, I think, as well. That's one of the reasons I wanted to get into it. And the first coach I had, they were dads. They had boys in the team. And then I had one coach that just wanted to be there to coach. He didn't have any kids. And that's the one that I really took to, and I really saw. I think he valued. I wasn't the best player on the pitch, and before I'd had coaches that valued the better kids, the ones that would score. Or yeah, I think these people that don't think it's not that they don't value the career; it's that they don't love the career, and I think that's sad that people don't find what they want to do. They just see it as a job, they work to live. And in a way, I think we all work to live, because, if you work, then it's in some aspects to pay for what you have and to pay for the bills. But
How are you this morning? You okay?
yeah, all good.
Good. It's nice early Sunday morning football and non-stop, which is as per usual for us in the sports and coaching world.
Yeah, I know. Sheffield United have got a game on telly this afternoon, so that'll be a long day.
Yeah, absolutely. What game is it?
We've got Man City.
Oh, there you are. Look, that'll be a tough game.
Yeah, that's why I'm not going.
Yeah, stay away from it and try and catch it on the telly, hide those emotions, etc.
Yeah.
Well, because I did see you've got a long-term injury, don't you, that you're struggling with and have rehabilitation from?
Yeah, I've done my ACL.
Massive injury once you get an ACL and a bit of time out from that.
Yeah, I said to everybody I'd be better off breaking my leg.
So when you had that ACL, what there's a lot of emotion and thought that goes straight into that. What, as soon as you got told it was an ACL injury, what was you thinking?
I think, to be honest, it took nearly 4 weeks to get that sort of diagnosis. So I'd pretty much accepted it already, because I couldn't sleep a lot in the first couple of weeks, very uncomfortable. And I was on my phone thinking, Googling what could it be, and everything just pointed towards that. So it was probably harder before then, thinking even like the next 12 months, everything's changed a little bit.
Absolutely.
So I think it's just, it's just a bit rubbish.
Yeah, of course, because you're missing out on training, missing being with the squad, missing on games, etc. And even just training, the little thing that you can look forward to, following work or just at the end of the day, something as simple as that you can't go to because of this injury that is preventing you from doing so. And then everything else, you're seeing everyone else training the games, and you can still be part of it off the bench, but playing and being backroom staff is very different.
Yeah, I've never had any kind of injury really. I've always been, even from when I was younger, been very lucky to just sort of carry on all the way through. And then I always said, to be fair, I would do my ACL if I was to do an injury. So it's my own fault.
Hey, once you speak, it leads that way at times.
Yeah, it's just one of the things. I think it was a pre-season friendly. We were winning 12-0. There was only 3 minutes left in the game. But then you think, well, it could have happened in training. It could have happened on the Sunday. You never know.
Absolutely. And even then, do you feel a little bit cheated that it was in a friendly game, especially when you're winning like 12-0?
Oh, yeah, completely. Because it was a joint game between, so our reserve team played the first half, and then my first team, we played the second, and they were winning 2-0. So when we went on, we won 10-0 in the 45 minutes. And that just says everything. We didn't need to be playing that game. So, but never mind.
Gutted for you. So how long do you have left in rehabilitation before you get back?
So I'm just waiting now. I'm waiting for surgery. But that won't be until November. So it's a case of I can't walk properly yet. There's a bit of a hesitation. So it's getting that normal, building my quad back up, and then surgery hopefully November, and then it'll be a 12-month rehab.
That's a long period of time to be out for, just an injury in itself. But, there's a lot that can change in that time. The squad dynamics, players coming in position-wise, and, sometimes you never come back and be the same player. But 12 months is a long time just for rehabilitation. But waiting for surgery and then having that surgery, that time off from it's a huge process.
Yeah, I think it's already I think it's over 5 weeks now since I've done it. So then to wait for surgery, it's not just 12 months, it'll end up being much longer than that, actually.
Yeah.
So, it is and I'm off work as well. I got 9 weeks off because I work in a college. So I did this in the second week, which then I've not really done anything all summer, but...
Hey, what an unfortunate time for you to have picked up that injury, and it affects life as well. I think some people don't realise that, especially when you're combining work and playing, and then it's taking a toll on life, taking a toll on professional work, taking a toll on playing. So there's that huge combinations that you might not get in any other sector, but sport seems to bring it round. But we still do it because we love it, and we just sort of brush it off at times and accept that it is part of sport and things that we have to endure once we go into the football world.
Yeah, I think I've never really known anybody that's done this kind of injury. So it does put me in a bit of a position where, as a coach, if I ever have a player that does it, I will be able to have a bit more empathy than somebody that hasn't. So I think of it from that point of view, where that might help at a certain point. But I wasn't planning on stopping playing anytime soon because I'm still a little bit young. So... but it does give me that opportunity to focus fully on my coaching without thinking about playing as well.
And that was it. There's a couple of things in there. You get to support the players on the comeback from that, and how you take that in. And it's unfortunate that you've had this experience, but then you can also brush it off in a positive manner where you can support someone else. You can focus more on your coaching and allocate time to that, and maybe time where you might not have had if you were combining everything else, including playing. And then it's that mental mindset of coming back from an injury and preparing yourself. So you are young. How old are you?
I'm 23.
I was going to say you are young, and because you're still working towards your UEFA B license, and still coaching alongside playing, which is what you want to do. But what led you into coaching? Why did you coach? What took you down this route?
Well, it was actually stopping playing that allowed me to coach. So I played all right from being young. I played at my local club, which is Kiverton, and then when I was that age where you got to 13 and you couldn't play in the boys' team anymore. There wasn't any girls' teams back then, 10 years ago. So I moved to, it's still quite local, but it was like from a 3-minute drive to a 15-minute drive. So a bit awkward. Played elsewhere for a few years, and then various reasons stopped playing. I was probably about 15, and then a couple of years later, after completely falling out of love with it, my uncle said there was a girls' team at my local club. Did I want to go and help out and maybe pursue a coaching career? So from then, I went and met the girls, and I felt a bit not responsible, but because there was no girls' team there when I was there, I thought this was the second girls' team that they'd ever had. So I felt a bit like, yeah, I think this is the right thing to do. So went down. This is nearly 6 years ago now. Met the girls, and they were under 11s at the time. And as soon as I met them, that was it. Like, I just thought, I remember I couldn't even drive at the time because I was 17. So my dad had to drop me off. I got back and I said, like, I couldn't imagine never going back. I was just sold on the conversations that I'd had with the kids. I'd not really been around kids, but I just thought, yeah, this is where I belong. It was really weird, actually.
And sometimes that's what happens, because some people have a planned route into coaching. Sometimes you can fall into it. And sometimes it might just be someone, having that recommendation or saying, come along to this session. And I know that's how I started. I was in the sixth form and I was doing Duke of Edinburgh and Welshback. So I needed some volunteer hours, and they were doing a 5x60 sport development program in the school. And they were looking for volunteers. I thought, perfect, can volunteer, get my hours, etc. And I always loved playing. I always thought I wanted to be a coach, but I never knew how to get into that route. And you never really have that discussion around sort of sports and stuff realistically, unless you're one of the top elite performers in your high school and get recommended. So I ended up falling into it really, and I just loved coaching. I loved volunteering, and I was trying to get out of so many of my A-level lessons because I was just loving coaching so much. And by the age of 18, then I finished my A-levels, and I started a sport development job. We helped out start up an initiative at a club due to some Communities First funding, and then I ended up volunteering with that club, spent 4 years with them, and then we transitioned the team, and spent about 7 years with the one team that I had, just from starting up an initiative and falling into coaching. And that's what you say, you sort of build that connection. And for me, the point was, when I worked for that sport development unit, to go in, set up the program for the club, recruit some volunteers, set them up, and then sort of drift off from it. But they asked if I would stay on voluntarily, and I decided to stay with the club and help them out. And it was one of the greatest decisions that I ever had, because unless I started that, maybe I wouldn't have got on my B or C, or wouldn't have been able to transition a team into other places or do a bit of academy coaching. So, sometimes it's there in front of you without you actually realizing, and having someone go, yep, this is what's going to happen if you do X, Y, and Z, and go from there.
Yeah, it's strange. It was similar for me, actually, because I was in sixth form when I started. And I absolutely hated sixth form. I was well over it as soon as we started. So coaching gave me that outlet of, there is something after school, because I'm at uni now, but I didn't go back in the day. So I felt like everybody around me was sort of ready to move on. And the only thing I had going for me at the time was the kids team that I had. But if it hadn't been at that time, and it hadn't been that place, then it might not have worked out like it did. And I think it's funny how, like you say, staying on where you were, the right place, the right time, it can really change the way that you're going.
Absolutely, and it's good that the girls sort of had you and sort of were that pull factor for you to go back, because you built a great connection with them, and for you to get that off them, I'm sure they had that off you, vice versa as well, just for touching base in that one session. And it's great to sort of build those relationships, especially from the off, because sometimes you can take opportunities and it might not be the right one. You don't get the right feel from it, but if you've got that feel to go, right, I want to go straight back, then already it's the right decision to make by going straight back into it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, especially, I always say that the team that I had, the very first team, that could have been the end for it. It could have been the beginning and end, because if they weren't the girls that I had, if they weren't the age group, if they weren't the right team, I might have left that day and just said, no, it's not for me. And I might never have considered coaching again. And I mean, I work in sport development now. I really don't know where I would be without it, because I didn't get on the sport course at A-level, because they said I didn't do very well in biology, and they said it was very scientific, and so they didn't let me on it. And as soon as they stopped me from doing sport, I thought, I'm not really good at a lot of other things. So given that opportunity, and I still know the girls now. That there's some, I took them until they were under 15s, and there's some now that I still know and I still see, and they're still playing football. And having that, it means so much that you've influenced even a tiny bit. Because I know the coaches that I had when I was young, I still think of them and they influenced me in certain ways. And I think once you've had a good coach, or not even necessarily a good coach, but as somebody that wants to be there and wants to listen to you, then you remember that for the rest of your life.
Absolutely, and I completely agree with that. And it's great that you had them for 4-year period, and you still get to see them because they're at that point where they could be turning 15, 16. They're finishing high school, and it's that decision whether they want to go into sixth form college or whether they want to go abroad or move into job, etc. And at that point, you might find a lot of drop off from players because they might not want to play seniors levels because a lot of youth might go, right, let's mix in with the seniors, or sometimes it's not a youth and jump straight in. And I remember being 16, and there was no way that I wanted to play senior football. I tried to go do a few training sessions. I was like, it's just not for me. I didn't enjoy what I had as a kid, so I just stopped playing at that point. But when it comes to coaches remembering them, I completely agree. I remember I was in primary school and we had a football team, and a lot of the boys were playing for them, so I ended up joining, and I was one of the boys' dads, and it was my first ever game, and it was like a training session. I went and I stood on the side. I was not very good, and it was hence why I went training. But he said the team were not very good either, and we were losing. And I remember just standing there as a young kid. He said, "I'm going to walk into this effing tree in a minute because we conceded," and I'm just stood there like, "What?" But he was proper red with rage and screamed that out loud, and I was like, "Is this really football?" And that has always lived with me. Just that 10-second moment ever since. And he ended up finishing at the end of the season. We were quite lucky. We had a new coach come on. He took over for 2 years, and we went through a very good phase, and I had a lot more minutes. I was developing. It was just then unfortunate his boy was so good that his boy went into the academy, and he decided that he didn't want to coach no more. My dad tried to take over for a year, but it was a very difficult year because a lot of those boys had left because this one player had left. High school transition into year 7, so a couple of the other boys were want to go to this team and that team. So my dad sort of had a very fragile team, and it didn't last very long. So then that was sort of the end of my playing journey. Tapped into a few different clubs here and there, but it just never worked out for me. But when it comes to those coaches, you definitely remember even the most smallest of moments. It can last with you. I'm 26, and what was that when I was 6 or 7, and it still lives with me.
Yeah, I had all male coaches, I think, as well. That's one of the reasons I wanted to get into it. And the first coach I had, they were dads. They had boys in the team, and then I had one coach that just wanted to be there to coach. He didn't have any kids, and that's the one that I really took to, and I really saw. I think he valued. I wasn't the best player on the pitch, and before I'd had coaches that valued the better kids, the ones that would score, or they were just they could take on the whole team, and I didn't value that. I valued the effort and the attitude, and it wasn't until I had a coach that also valued that I really felt valued as a player in the team. And I ended up never got awards, but I got manager's player, and that to me, I think I was 11 or 12 at the time, and that was everything, because it really felt like he understood me as a player, even though I wasn't the best player on the pitch. And I'm sure the parents of the boys team didn't appreciate me getting that award, but that's why it leads you to become the coach that you are because of what you've had in the past. And as well, the last manager that I had, he was a dad as well, and I think you unconsciously you pick up traits of other people that you don't want to become, and the ones that you maybe do want to become a little bit. So I think that really helped you as a coach from your past experience, because like you say, you knew in those 10 seconds that was that's not the right environment. So when you know that, and when you've played, I think you can then, you're not always perfect, but you can create the environment that you want.
I absolutely agree with you there, and you get to see what you don't want to be as well, and what you can take away in those traits. So, for example, when my dad took over, I thought I was, the bee's knees. I thought that, my dad was the coach, I was the best player, and I was absolutely not the best player. I had attitude with him, and that's one of the reasons it didn't last very long. But I didn't know how to cope with my dad transitioning from dad to coach, and also, having him there taking sessions and thinking I was then the bee's knees because of it. And it, I look back and I'm like, I really wish that it worked out, or I wish I had that time again. So I see one of the other boys in my team, and my assistant coach is his dad, and I see him giving attitude to his dad the way that I gave it to mine. So I've sort of had to mediate that relationship because I don't want it breaking down, or I don't want those moments to be taken away from either of them. Luckily, they've had like 5 or 6 years together, and they've had a lot longer than I had with my dad. I think I had like something like 6 months less than that, and it's just little things that I can take away from that. But also that coach who was swearing on the sideline, I don't want to swear, I don't want to lose my temper, I want to create synergy within the team, or create happiness. Or if I win having minutes because, like you, I wasn't the most technical of players, then how could I ensure that the players were getting the most minutes that are possible? If they weren't getting as many minutes, then let's put on a friendly in the week, let's do one training with the most technical players, let's put on a game for these. And sometimes there's optics and politics within that, because parents were like, why are they getting games? But it's so hard, because you try and balance it out to do what the right thing might be, but then it might also be seen as the wrong thing, and you're always on a losing battle no matter what. And sometimes it can be difficult. But even for you as a young player, then receiving that award for as something that you value so much and had a big impact on you, for those parents to look and go, oh, maybe Sophie didn't deserve that, or why is she getting that? It's such a horrible place to be, because I've seen it for some players that I've awarded it to, and we've made all the justification as a coaching team. We've done consultations with each other, we've even tracked data and had data back it up because of parents querying it. But it's hard, because you look at these players and they're being questioned, you're like, this kid's like 11 or 12 and you're questioning them over winning a grassroots award. Give over, like.
Yeah, I struggle with that a lot. Presentations, I've actually not done many. I think I've done, because of the COVID year, it's probably ended up being maybe 3 presentations I've actually done myself, and giving those awards and feeling stressed about giving the awards to the kids, because you just don't know what the backlash is going to be. And I've been at a presentation where there has been huge backlash from certain things, and then they've walked out of the presentation, and I just never knew that was going to be the environment. And even to my under 18s that I left in the summer, when I did their presentation, me and my assistant coach, we chatted and we said, look, if it's the best technical player for manager's player, it's this player, no questions asked. But if it's attitude and if it's an all-round player, that it's hard, because players at that age, they don't bring themselves to training. So if they're late, is that their fault? It's all these things. And you have to say, look, I'm confident in my decision of why I'm giving this player. And if any parent wants to argue with me afterwards, if I'm strong enough to know why I've done it and I can justify it, not that I think you should have to justify it, but then it makes it easier. And I think if you just pick the best player just because everybody thinks they're the best player, even though that's not what you want to believe and you want to give the award for, then it makes it much more difficult to justify why you've given it. So I think knowing all your players and being able to just stand by what you want to, sort of the culture and the players that you want to grow, and then it makes it much easier.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you, and I think that's a great point for anyone listening, especially for those grassroots coaches or coaches maybe starting out, because presentations are hard, but you have to stand by your decisions, and it's a game of opinions, it's a game of perspectives at times, and that's difficult because, as you say, you might have your opinion and your outlook on a player, but then it might be justified in a different way by a parent or seen differently. But you shouldn't have to justify it, but be in a position that you can, just in case. It is football, you're always going to get someone approaching you or arguing with it, and that's the big shame, because you shouldn't have to stand there stressing about giving an award out to the player because you've made that decision. And the whole point of a presentation is to enjoy the wrap up of what a season has been, to give something back to the players. But then you're there stressing, you give something to a player, and then you're receiving backlash from it, and then suddenly you're like, why am I doing this? And what's the point? And you go home feeling rubbish because of it, and it's not a great place to be. And it's, for both as a coach, but then as a young player yourself there, it's so much to really consider when it comes into it. And sometimes it shouldn't have to be so much of consideration. Be be like, yeah, this is the award, that is why, and there shouldn't have to be anything other. And at times you can end up creating a few more awards than what's needed just for that optic outlook, just to try and appraise it. And then realistically, it shouldn't have to be that way, because you're creating more awards for the need and demand of parents, or maybe because they're going to be upset that their child didn't receive one. It's like, well, it shouldn't have to be that way. But sometimes it's hard. You've got such a talented group in front of you, and you're looking at these players while you're there. You're like, yep, they could have won it, she could have won it, he could have won it. But then realistically, you have to make that choice, and that's why we're coaches. And unfortunately, the accountability stops with us, and it's hard to be in that position at times, especially when you're in a head coach, lead coach, manager, etc. But moving away from that, when you actually look at the technical side of what a coach could or should be doing, there's so much which actually surrounds that, and that just proves everything that we've spoken about. But it's not actually being focused exactly on the technical side.
Yeah, it's not, and I think that's why obviously we've got the four corners, because there's so many things to consider, and even a case of some teams do man of the match or player of the match, whatever, after every game. Well, I've never done that, because all you end up doing is you either give it to the standout player every week, which nobody does, so you give it to everybody, and it gets to the last person, and you think, well, I know it's going to me because we've gone around the whole team. And what that does for kids, I just think it's unreal that, and people have different opinions on it, and I can see why people do it, especially at the younger age. But I think if we're talking about this whole player development, if from when they're under 10, under 11, they're getting awards, not silly awards, but they're just getting awards for sort of turning up. And if we think about the four-corner model, what is that doing for them? And I think you've got to think about them as a player in years to come. And we've both spoken about things that we remember from players, and we're now in our 20s. So what if you've got a team that are under 11, under 12, you've got to think about, what am I doing that's going to affect this whole player, whether they play football or not, for the rest of their lives. Because I think there are just behaviours that you can demonstrate, and think about the psychology of it all, and where you could go around talking about it forever, but it's not just about the actual player on the pitch.
And I completely agree with you again there, and I can reflect, because I had a very good team at under 11s, and they were established and they've been together for years, and we ended up acquiring 2 more players, and they travelled quite a distance to play for us, and one of them was a very gifted technical player and easily became one of our best players technical wise, and he could run, he could shoot, he could pass, he could move, but he wasn't very good at being a good teammate, wasn't very good at passing, his attitude was shocking, and his dad actually didn't really help that situation, and we ended up having quite a few confrontations with the dad. So it was obvious that he was used to getting his way, used to getting awards, used to getting the top goal scorer, used to being player of the season, etc. And we're like, you've come into a very different environment, because that's not our expectations. You have to work to justify what these are. And sometimes he did, because, when he was scoring or getting assists, it was like, yeah, he is justifying it in that way. But actually, has he created a 1-2 there? Or actually, has he been part of the teammate? So he missed out on a few awards, and maybe that's some of the reasons why he left upon reflection, and some of the thoughts that I've had, because he wasn't, the centre of attention. I was like, you are in with a very good group of technical players, but it's not only that, they got great attitude to supplement it. So this is why they've won player of the season, or this is why they're clubmen, because they're not just showing up to, training and game every week, but they've showed up to the parties, they've showed up to the events, they've volunteered, they've helped raise money, but you haven't actually been part of any of that. But then you've queried why your son hasn't won player of the season or clubman. It's like, because there is so much more than just turning up the games and training and scoring a load of goals all year round.
Yeah, I think you get a lot of, they are selfish players, but because they want to be a good player, and you understand it, and you know that they want to do well, but you have to try and mould them into understanding that it is a team, and they're not going to get anywhere. If everybody else didn't turn up and they did, they wouldn't be able to play the game. And I think a lot of them don't realise that. I've always said I would love a team from under 7, like, to keep the team together all the way through. Realistically, it never happens. I think it happens more at boys' teams than it does in girls, because, I mean, traditionally girls fall out, and girls, drop out a lot earlier than boys do. When they become 14, they don't want to play anymore. So, but being able to have that under 17, keeping them together all the way through to open age, and just being able to, create, like I say, that environment and that culture where you don't get a player like that comes and disrupts it, and you have to try and teach them, but maybe they can't be taught that anymore. Maybe they've just got so used to it that that's them now for the rest of their footballing life.
Of course, and I completely understand the outlook as well in terms of those considerations of dropouts and maybe why that journey doesn't always fulfill itself. But being with a team, I was very lucky in that sense where I was with one from under 6s to under 11s, and it's only until I made that decision I was like, right, I'm at a point now where I'm 25. I've been an academy coach. I've been with a team for 6 years. I've been on my B license, but I'd really like to get on the A, and it really pulled on my heartstrings because I gave so much commitment to this team, and we ended up establishing a football club because of the team, and it was named around it. And we had very good community input because some of the players had connections which allowed us to build the club. And there was a personal investment from those players as well into it. And it was a great position to be in, and it really helped the players build so much more. And then in years to come, they can look back and be like, you know what, I played for that club, and that club exists because I was part of the establishing team and whatnot. But it was like one of those where I was like, right, how much more do I give to the personal commitment to this team and my love and all of that? But then how do I look at trying professionally growing as well and try to get there? And sometimes it's hard because whilst you want to get on your A, you're competing with ex-professional players, you're competing with those who are working already in the full-time academy because their uni courses allow them to, and therefore spaces are sparse. So then it's very difficult to try and get on that A. So you need to try and project yourself at a club who's maybe recognised and build those contacts and relationships. And it's so difficult because I was in a fantastic position where I was team manager, I was head of coaching, had this team which meant so much more and built a club around them, but had to give it all up to try and get on the A license. And sometimes it's hard because that seems quite selfish in a way, but I was like, well, I've been with this team for like 6 or 7 years. I've gone through everything with them. I want to stay with them, but I can't justify working full-time uni podcast and then coaching at 2 different grassroots clubs again. That is so difficult to have 2 different clubs, but it's a difficult coaching journey as we've already established so far.
Yeah, I understand because I left my under 18s team this summer, and that was for very similar reasons, because you have to think, how far can I go? I'm not going to get any further with the club that I play for and that I was at, and I'm still there now because obviously I don't play anymore, but I'll be finishing my UEFA B with them. I've just got 1 visit left where I'll do it with the team I play for. But yeah, you've got to decide. And I think if you do want to go far, and for me, it's a career, so staying at a grassroots club, and that I've given a lot to, and I don't know if everybody sees it like that because they see I've had 2 girls teams and I've left both of them, but I've given 5-6 years to the club. And I've never been to another grassroots club. But then you've got to think, how good am I? If I can't go and work in an academy, or if I can't, then you have to test yourself. And I do work, like I said, at a college and coach the girls team there, but it's a whole different environment because it's education focused. And if I stayed at the grassroots club, then I wouldn't get any further than I've got now on my B. So to get to that next level, which I don't see for a few years anyway, then I need to be tested somewhere else, and I need to be around really good coaches. And it's easy to feel in the grassroots game that you've done it. But I think you need to put in that volunteering, you need to put in all the effort, because that's where you realise how much you love it, because you'll do it every night and you'll do it on the weekends and you won't be paid for it. But you know you want to be there because you know it's going to take you somewhere.
And again, such a great point within itself as well, because you're there for the right reasons and you're there because you love it. I remember being at the club that I was previously, that we founded, and I was putting it in graft sort of every night because I just absolutely enjoyed it. And sometimes I'll sit there and I might, have some downtime and watching something, and then I'm like, right, I've got this idea, boom, stop that. And already I'm working on it. I was like, but this is grassroots, so I'm not even getting paid for it. But it's that love that took me into doing it. And I know when I transitioned into another club and I went in to coach their under 19s, I didn't have that same commitment. I wasn't putting in time because I didn't have that sort of love or connection to the team, and I tried to put into it, but it just wasn't there naturally as it was with my previous club. And sometimes you put in those hours because you want to, and again, it's that perspective, because you've put in 5 years for that team, but it might be seen differently, or Sophie was only here for this, or only there for that, or she's coached 2 teams and suddenly she's moving on. Where when you actually try to look at it and break it down in ways that I have done as well, it's actually so much more than that. You actually have that bigger impact, and there's so much more which you've committed. But you have to then realise, if you're giving so much commitment to these players and they go off and be, semi-pros, or they get scholarships, or they go and move on to other clubs, or you set them up for life to become lifelong participants, or they're playing seniors football, whatever. They've all sort of moved on because of what you've enabled them to do so. But within doing that, you may have prevented yourself from moving on where you want to be. So whilst they've all moved on, you haven't really got to where you want to be, and that's why I sort of look back with a bit of sadness upon reflecting back, and sort of have a little bit of regret, because I'm 26, I've got sort of 3 years left of my degree, to by the time I finish my degree and do my PGCE, and that takes me towards 30s. Then at that point, I'm like, realistically, I could have been 4 or 5 years into teaching at this point. And by being 4 or 5 years in, what else in my life could I have? Could I have had my own house, or, everything else that sort of culminates with that. And it's difficult because you sort of balance out what you want to do because you love, but then you're like, maybe that's held me back, or maybe I shouldn't do this because it might hold me back again. So it's making the decisions at the right time, in the right place for you. So 23 is a very nice age to be finishing up your B, to be in a full-time sport development role in a college, to be doing uni. So everything on the outset is looking good. So
yeah, to be honest, I always said I put times on things, and I probably shouldn't. I say, like, I want to finish my UFB by this point, and I want to have done this. And then, especially when you get an injury like this, or through COVID, actually COVID, though difficult for everybody, I was very lucky, because that's when I got my job, because I was a waitress, and I did after school clubs. So I'd go from the pub that I was at, and then go to the like coaching company to work an hour, to then be in the car for 3 hours, and it just didn't. It was a means to an end. Like, I knew it was getting me through a year, and once I was furloughed, then it actually made me realise that I need to be serious about what I want to do now. So I think I'm still young, but there are things that I feel like I should be further on, and like I said, with this injury, I think, I wanted to finish my B in the summer, and now I'm not going to. And will it be before my surgery? Will it be after? I don't know. But I think you've just got to let it play out, and you don't know what's going to come along the way. And there are opportunities that present themselves, and if you're not in the right place for them, then you just need to assess your options. And I think, I don't know what's going to come from this year, but I've still got a lot, and I've still got the job that I do love. And I think regardless of everything else, it's important to remember that everything adds up to what I want to be in the end, whether it takes 2 years or 5 years. It really, you have to enjoy the process, as they say.
And absolutely enjoy the process and enjoy what you're doing. But sounds like it worked out for you. And sometimes, I was very much like you at your age, and very much put a time frame on things, because I was like, right, what have other professionals achieved at this point, and how have they got there, etc. So then I'm constantly comparing myself, and I do that now even still. And sometimes it's bad trait. My dad's like, you need to stop doing that. But I'm like, but it actually allows me to look at benchmarks for where, right, I want to get here because someone else is doing it. Or it just allows me to sort of reflect and be like, right, how can I refocus and put the purpose into the time that I'm doing, or time into the purpose. And it's difficult because you want to let things play out, but you also want to put timestamps on it, because you look at some people and what they've achieved, and they're like, right, if they didn't actually go after and achieve that or push for it, maybe they might not have gotten where they wanted to, but then it's also like, but there is time to let things play out. So it's the all fun and games of where we sit in our own mind at times, and it's like, right, how can I let this play out, or how can I push it to happen? And that's where a lot of, say, mental health comes from, because we think in so much detail, and we're over analyzing things, and we're like, right, can I get my degree done? Can I do this in my job? What can I do at grassroots? How can I get into academy coaching? What's my B license look like? I've been hit by injury, so when's that gonna delay my B license? How? And everything that comes into question, you're not just thinking about one route, but you've got, say, 5 or 6 different avenues which your mind is going down, and then you're over detailing everything, and then it can be quite a hard place to be when you're stimulating everything in your mind.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I hope that everybody else is the same, but there's a lot of times you're struggling to sleep because you're planning your session or you're thinking of something, and it's so stressful, and thinking of all the things that you need to do. And I think though we do it because we enjoy it, but there's a lot of it that seems like it's not too difficult, but it's a lot of stress, and it's a lot of, you don't just finish work and come home and that's it. I think coaching is every minute of every day almost. Like this, even when everything I watch on Netflix, and I watch all these, every documentary that comes out about any sport, and I did the PGA Tour one and The Last Dance, and you're trying to learn a little bit from everything, and it can be really stressful. And I mean, I'm going on holiday next week because that's when I'm not going to think about any of it. But if you see something on Twitter, or then you make a note, and it's like you feel like if you miss it, then you're never going to see it again.
And I completely resonate with you there. And, I remember when I was around your age, if not just a year before or so, but I was in a relationship at the time, and she was a coach as well. Very lucky that we were both in the coaching world, very unlucky at the same time as well, because we're both clashing over maybe sessions or how we think things should be done. But I was so committed to it, and I was so passionate to the team that I was giving in that commitment. And again, this is where maybe a bit of regret comes in, but regret over time and maybe decisions of missing out on opportunities. But it was like, right, nope, don't want to go away. Nope, don't want to do that. Nope, because I actually couldn't mentally pull myself away because of what I might have missed at grassroots level of my team. And that sounds quite sad in itself, but that is where my absolute heart was at, because I was like, I love coaching. I don't want to miss a game on a weekend. I don't want to miss training, because we trained on a Saturday, we played on a Sunday. I was like, I can't justify missing 2 days. And it was just because I had such a passion and commitment to that, and it just, that's maybe one of the reasons why it wasn't working at the time. But my mind was so driven towards that, it was difficult, because then it sort of pushed us apart, because you're young, you want to go out and experience things like holidays, like those times away, like going out and doing things. But it's like, no, football, no, this. And sometimes you go off and do things after, like, go to a Comic Con or whatever. But we're turning up late, it's after coaching, we're in coaching gear. And it's not like you've gone home, got dressed, changed and freshened up, etc. And that's hard, because, it can drive on your personal relationships, but you can be so committed. Again, it's finding that right point of what might work and what might not. So that's something which I learned about life in itself and relationships in that time, and that's something which I've taken away with me now. So if I'm like, right, if I want to have that weekend away, if I was going to, then don't have a regret about doing it, or don't postpone it because you've got a game or something. So I've always been in that space where it's like, don't let that happen to you again, and make sure that you're taking time for yourself. Because I ended up missing my dad's graduation because I wanted to do a training session, and yet years later I'm like, I missed that, but how many of those players can remember that I missed it? Or how many of those players can I actually remember? Or all those staff that I'd done it for, how many of them actually still work for the club? And the answer is none of them. So it's like, so what did I realistically do? Oh, nothing, but I've missed out on that in that sense as well. So when you look back, it's like, make sure you balance out what is right.
Yeah, nobody really knows what you're missing out on, do they? Because you don't turn up and say, oh, I'm here instead of being here. And I'm the same. I rarely missed any games, any training. And the one that I did miss last year, I missed a game, and they won without me. And that sent me into a whole another level, because they were all on the Facebook page after, they were saying how great it was. And I just thought, oh, they won because I wasn't there. And that was them. Something else that I didn't think I'd ever have to overthink. But actually, you're talking about a kids team, other under 18s, and I felt like I missed it because Sheffield United were at Wembley. That's why. Yeah. So I actually chose Sheffield United. We lost, but they just saw a great game without me, and then going back the next week. So I was only like 5-6 years older than them, but I felt like it was being back at school, and they were talking and saying how much better it was, and you have to think, well, I can't be with them all the time, and I do all this effort so that they do win the games, whether I'm there or not. So I tried to think it wasn't a negative thing because they won without me, which it's great. That's what they should be doing. But yeah, it's just really sometimes it's difficult to see when you're not there. You're thinking about it and worrying, and then when you are there, what are you missing?
And that's it. It's what you're missing, and you feel like you're not part of that, and you feel like a bit of FOMO within that process, and that is something which I had. And even when it's a Sunday evening, my assistant coach is ringing me. I was like, but the game was hours ago, and we've had a conversation since then, and we're still having conversations. And it's like it's grassroots football. It's not academy football, or I'm not working full time, and I'm not receiving updates on all the teams that I've played. But it got into a position where I was like really enjoying talking to him. We were in that sort of mindset, but I was like, we're having too many phone calls a week. We're chatting about things which is taking too long. So sometimes I see the call and I just let it play out because I was like, right, I'm going to stop what I'm doing now to take this phone call. I'm like, how often am I stopping what I want to do? So when I see people be selfish and they're like, right, watching a film, or they've gone out, or they're maybe playing on the Xbox or PlayStation, for example, or they're just switching off but they're doing what they want, I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how I can just sit here, not see my phone go off and go, right, yeah, I'm just going to, pick that up and do this because that's important. And that's something which I've started to do. I'm like, right, I've seen that come through, but I'll leave that until a little bit later and I'll just get back to it because, you're being pulled into it so much, and then it can be hard then because you're giving so much into it and you're actually stopping what you want to do. So yesterday I just had a couple of hours, thought, right, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to play FIFA for a couple of hours now. I've just got some downtime. I'm going to do no studying, none of this. I'm just going to have a switch off time. But then all I had was two friends message me at the same time, voice note. So every couple of minutes I was pausing to get back to them. I was like, nah, I should just block them out for 2 hours and then get back to it. It's so difficult to try and switch off from anything in life itself. But even when it's coaching and you see a parent contact you or one of your players or anything like that from the club, and it's hard. I completely understand that position. I completely understand being 23 and knowing where that sort of mind is.
Yeah, it's unreal actually because my friends that don't have any of this and they're just enjoying the weekends or their evenings and I can be out, maybe we've gone for a meal somewhere and it's 9 o'clock at night and I've got a message from a parent that's just ruined my day, and they've said whatever they've said or they're complaining about something, and there's so many times, and that's why it got to a point where twice that I ended up saying no, this is enough, because every week you're worrying what's going to come through on Messenger, and your phone's always on you. You're always available. And when I was, whether I was away or wherever I was, getting those messages through, it's just you feel like you shouldn't have to deal with that, and it ruins your day. You get really upset about it, and then you think, but why did I even look at it? Why did I? I'm out. I'm with friends. I'm with family. I shouldn't have looked at it. But people don't. I don't think parents understand that you've got a life outside of the team that you coach. And I've had many messages and big paragraphs of complaints and various things. Or I've been speaking to this parent, and this parent said this to me, and it's like being on the playground. It's unreal what you have to deal with, and people don't see it because they see you on a Saturday or they see you on a Thursday for training, and they don't see that every other parent is messaging you every week saying X, Y, and Z. And I think it is difficult to step away from it. And if your phone rings, it is difficult not to answer it if you see it. But yeah, I think you have to at some point say, no, that's enough. I'm going to not reply to that right now. I'm going to wait until I'm in a better frame of mind to say something nice to them.
I've been in that absolute position, and I know how many different texts and phone calls that I've had. And I had a very good assistant manager who I started batting him off to, and he would deal with a lot of them. But I've been in that position for years to come, and maybe that's one of the reasons that I left grassroots, because I don't want to deal with the politics anymore. And even on a Saturday morning, we would train something like 10 o'clock to 11:30, or even 9:30 to 11, and that was our training time. But I was there like 8 o'clock in the morning. I was like, right, I've got all the equipment in my car, so my car is already ruined. I've then got to open all the gates up because we used the primary school. I've then got to carry all the equipment round by myself, and that's not just like one team equipment. That is like our poles, our goals, our footballs, our cones, everything, all by myself. So by the time we set up and kids were coming in for half an hour, I was like, yeah, I've already been here an hour and a half. I'm like shattered. I've been in work all week. It's never early morning. I feel knackered. So then the players leave at 11. By the time you pack up your car and whatever, and then typically on Saturday I used to go for a haircut, and then you'd be sat in the hairdressers like 1 o'clock waiting. By the time you have it, it's 3 o'clock. You're home at 3:30, 4, and you're like, that was an hour and a half training session, but I've been there like for like 7 hours, and it used to feel like a working day. I was like, no, I need to break out of this, and it just needs to break down. But when you're in, even on the sidelines, then you're looking around, looking at the parents, like who's talking to who, why are they talking, why are they stood there, what are they saying, and you can sort of see certain conversations taking place because it actually breaks down. Oh, I don't like the training kit, I don't like the playing kit, or this is too big, or that's too small. Why are they getting minutes, or why are we training here? Training's too early, and you're like, we're working as hard as we can just to put this on for you. I don't see you standing here and putting this session on or doing this for the club. And it can be hard, and that's what can drive you out of grassroots. And sometimes when you get in an academy, you're like, yeah, don't have to deal with that. Head of coaching or head of phase deals with that. I can actually just deliver on the technical side, work with a team. And sometimes there are going to be those comebacks, but I don't have to deal with that. Sometimes I might have to give input, but I can actually enjoy being with the team. So it got the points where I had this grassroots team I was with for years and years, and then I was in the academy, and I was like, right, I enjoy the academy because I love the high quality, the standards, the intensity of it all, and that's where I want to go. And then sometimes it was too intense, so I love being with the grassroots team, and I love just, enjoyment and trying to achieve. But then I was like, right, politics. So I kept having that sort of weighing scales of up and down, and that was a hard position to be in because it was like academy, no grassroots, and sometimes you've got to cut one thing off to sort of work out what you want to do and where you want to go with it.
Yeah, it sounds like a dream to not have to think about anything other than the actual session that you're delivering. But as a grassroots coach, I think there's always 101 things that come before and after that. And it's actually, you're lucky if you get the hour to coach because of, other teams that are invading space, or they've not, one thing that drives me mad is on 3Gs when the team before you leave the nets in the middle of the pitch. Just put right, and then they watch you put the nets back, and I'm too nice to have a go and say anything, but stuff like that, they don't realise that's like 2-3 minutes out of your session just because they were too lazy to put the nets back. So it is difficult, and I think that's why I'm now looking towards what's next, and is there an academy, and because being able to just coach good players is something that I've had good players, but I've not had good teams. It's been very recreational. It's been very for fun. So that next level of testing yourself and then not worrying about the backlash that you're going to get from the parents, I think that sounds like a dream compared to grassroots.
And when you get into that sort of position and you're in an academy or you're in that environment and you see that quality of teams and players and that intense levels and those high standards. And I remember that I was coaching under 19s back last year, and it was trying to get on my A. I was at a very good club, but I had a parent confront me the one week. She's like, can I talk to you? I was like, yeah. And she's like, right, I got an issue with this because you called out the defence. I said, no, I actually haven't called out the defence. I said the defence as a collective are leaking too many goals, and hence why we've conceded so many. So we have a defensive error at the back that we need to correct. I said that's obvious. The data stipulates it in itself. You can see it in the performance. And then she said, right, I think you need to stop coaching to the high standards. I know you're an academy coach. I know what you're trying to bring in. I know what you're trying to do. But this isn't an academy team. I was like, I know it's not an academy team because we're leaking too many goals at the back. But it was like the high standards is what I want. The intensity is what I expect. I said they're under 19s now. The whole purpose is, yes, they want to try and enjoy it from transition to juniors into youth, but they are trying to push for senior team football. They want to try and get in. And, even if they enjoy it for 3 years and like, right, my 3 years is up, but I've, the coach has coached me. He's given me minutes. He's allowed me to do this. But then I'm not at the technical ability to get into first team. What do I do from there? So those players that are actually stepped up and achieved that, they're actually going to progress and push on without me hand-holding them. And I was like, are you for real? Like, this is under 19s football now. It's competitive for a reason. It's also senior football. If you don't want to be part of that, I completely understand. But maybe you should look at maybe a reserves team then, or third team football, or just, and that's a hard sort of conversation to have. But I was like, are you actually asking me to drop my standards because you think they're too high?
Yeah, that's the problem with obviously any environment that you're in. Everybody's opinion, and everybody thinks that their opinion is the be all and end all. And I think when you do get to that environment where it is more elite, then you have got standards that you've got to drive. And you, like I say, I've never really, apart from the college league, that you sort of then think, is my job going to depend on how well this team does and how good of a coach I am with this team? I've never had that pressure really. So I think it's good pressure, but I think you've just got to be aware of literally everybody's opinion is going to come at you. So like you say, you're not going to drop your standards just for one player or for one parent's opinions. And I think that's the most important thing, is that you just keep going with what you want to do.
100% completely agree with you. So, you're in a very good position where you're in the college, you work in sports development, but you want to be coaching long term, and that's where you're at. And it's a good outlook to have, and it's a good way to sort of benchmark where you want to go and have those foundations to sort of springboard off. But coaching is different from sports development. I know that I've been in the same sector, and there's a lot of combinations within both, but they have very different worlds within their own sense as well. And it can be hard to sort of leave sport development for coaching, because sport development is a lot of fun, enjoyment, participation, engagement, initiatives, setting things up, working with close partnerships and so on, whereas coaching is more the technical side. So once you move away from all of that side and you sort of like look at just coaching and the technical side, as you say, is that something that you 100% want to move away from and that you're happy to, because coaching is maybe the focus that you'd like long term?
I think, the answer is yes, the short answer. If I had a goal, if I could do anything without any limitations, then I would love to be a manager as high in the women's game as I could possibly go to. So to do that, I know that I've got to at some point prioritise coaching. But I think having that sort of, a foundation of sport development and the degree that I'm doing, to make sure that if I did leave to try and be a coach and it didn't work for whatever reason, or I decided I didn't want to do it every week and at the level that I think I want to do it at, then I think it's good to have that foundation to fall back on. And I know that I'm sort of building a career, and it's not coaching focused at all, really. Like my college don't value me as a coach, which is funny to say, but I'm not there to be the coach. I'm there to do everything else. So I think it's good to not pigeonhole yourself into just one thing, like to be able to do various things. And I think I was at St George's Park the other week, and there were loads of different speakers, and hearing all the different backgrounds. And there was somebody from Middlesbrough there, and she was talking about, like real numbers and data, and something that I'm not even at the minute thinking about, but everybody's got their own little niche expertise. So I think having background, and then you can see what you want to go into. It doesn't necessarily have to be a football coach. Could you work in an academy, but could you be something else as part of that? You're still contributing to the performance, but you're not on the pitch every day. So I think I'm pretty open to different things. And like I say, it's good not to just say, I'm going to be a football coach for the rest of my life. And I just don't, if it didn't work, it'd be too hard to change what I want to do. Whereas if I'm quite open and I love my job and it's not all about football, and being able to say that, I think it puts me in a better position going forward, because it allows me to just go down different avenues without thinking this is the only way for me.
I love that, and I think that's absolutely bang and spot on in terms of what you say. And even when I, say about being a teacher in a couple of years' time, that allows me to have different outputs, because in a few years beyond that, then, I can be a head of education within the academy. So I still get to work in the academy. I'm still around football. I get the combined teaching. But then I'm also in a great position whereby if I wanted to start a family, or opportunity happened, or life kicked in, then I could actually, teach in the day, still work in the academy, and then go home and see my family. Whereas sometimes if you're coaching in the evenings, you're coaching late nights, so maybe you have to miss out on those times. And that is one of the other considerations. We're both in a position where we don't have kids, we're not married, etc. I mean, you might be secretly, but who knows? But we're in that position, and you sort of have that outlook. And again, this is where even more detail of thinking comes in, because we're like, right, how's this going to look? Am I going to meet someone? When's this going to happen? Is the family going to kick in? And sometimes you're like, right, no, park that completely, focus on coaching, focus on work. But then you're like, how can I not consider that? Because I need to sort of plan life and sort of have that outlook. But it is hard coaching, because there is going to be times when you are going to be coaching that women's team, or hopefully you are. There are going to be late nights. There are going to be tough decisions. There is going to be analysis. There is going to be training. There are going to be player phone calls, and that is going to cut into your family life even before now when you've got it, and it's going to cut in at some point. So there's a lot of combinations which goes into coaching.
Yeah, it's something to consider. I think I am lucky, like I said, I'm at a point where I'm doing my B and I'm still sort of early 20s, if I can get away with that. But you've got to start thinking at some point about what will happen in the future. And I'm nowhere near ready to, I'm not going to have my own house anytime soon, but it allows me right now to focus on what I want to do, and I can be as selfish as I want in a way, and do every decision I make is for me. It's not, I don't have to consider anybody else. Not really anyway, which is nice, because then you get to a certain point where then when you do have a family and you do, life, like you say, when that gets in the way, maybe I'm already in a position where I can do as much as I want, so I could step away for a bit, but I've already got to a certain level, or I can balance it a bit better. I think putting yourself in a good position early on then allows you to be flexible, and you know what you want. And I think already I'm getting to a point where, so like I say, I work in a college, I don't want to be a teacher. That was not on my radar at all. I've worked for 3 years around teachers, and that's not the life I ever want. I'm going to be honest. But everybody's different. So I think through working in different environments with different people, you see, again, it's like similar to the coaches that you've had. You see what you want, and, I'm never going to work every hour in the week. I'm always going to want a bit of my own time and to prepare for whatever. And I'm very family orientated, so they come first no matter what. But at the same time, the career that I'm sort of projecting for myself, it allows for the both, hopefully, at some point.
And within that, some people might think that's a very selfish mindset, whereby you can put yourself first but don't have to think about others, in terms of, that if you wanted to go out next month and go on holiday for a month, you're in a position to do so realistically, because you've got no kids, you've got no commitments, you've got no house. So you're in that sort of freedom position to go out and do what you want. If you want to go abroad next year for a full-time job, you can, because you haven't got a family. And that's a very good position. And it's also, as you say there, you're aligning yourself and allowing yourself to be in a position whereby once you're balanced or set everything up, then you could have a family at the right time that allows that perfect balance for it to work out. But it's a great position to be in, because even now I'm at 26, I'm like, right, I've got 2 years left, third year of say PGC, so it's by the time I'm 30 I'm teaching and so on, and then I'm like, right, I haven't got a house at that point, but I know some people have, and I'm like, right, so what is the usual wrap-up point? You go in, you do your teaching, you get a house, you live your life, you teach and whatever. I'm like, right, I want to teach, but I don't want to teach forever, because I know how functional it is. I've worked in schools. I know I don't want to be doing classroom all day long for the rest of my life. I know that's going to be too busy, but I just want the experience behind me. It might give me the foundations to start a family, half terms, etc. The nice hours, and teachers put in a lot more hours around that. I know I do it now. But it's a nice balance, and then I can go into coaching, or how could coaching combine that, or how? But I'm also in a great position where I don't have a house, but would like a house, but don't want a house, because I'm like, if I want to move out at the end of my degree and go, to the USA or go out to Spain, I can, because I don't have a house or commitment, and then I could come back and buy one. Or do I buy one and then go out and then try and have a house that I come back to? So there's so many great positions where I'm like, yeah, I'm in a great position here, but I'd like to do this, but I don't want to do this, because it takes away from that great position whereby if I have kids, or were to have kids, then can I go out and have that free reign of moving abroad? No, I can't, because I might have that pullback. So sometimes in the freedoms that we have in the positions that we're in, we're very, very lucky. And some people see that as a very selfish mindset, and see it as they just can't comprehend that level of thinking, because you're trying to put that career first. You're like, but I don't have commitments, and if I do this, it's going to give me commitments, so I don't want to do that. But coaching comes first, or my career comes first, and some people just can't regulate that level of thinking.
Yeah, I think these people that don't think it's not that they don't value the career; it's that they don't love the career, and I think that's sad that people don't find what they want to do. They just see it as a job, they work to live. And in a way, I think we all work to live, because, if you work, then it's in some aspects to pay for what you have and to pay for the bills. But if you can enjoy what you do, then why not give that a go? And I think I wouldn't put in this amount of effort for something that I didn't really care about. And if it was just a 9-to-5 job that I went to every day, I probably wouldn't give it a second thought. But when it means something to you, and when you want it to put you somewhere, then you've got to be selfish, because you're the only one that's going to get you to a certain place. And I do believe in it's a lot of who you know gets you in the door, but then it's what you know that keeps you in the door. So just because you've been recommended, or just because you've got a friend, or you know somebody, that might get you the interview, but they're not going to get you the job if you don't know anything. So being selfish and doing all the work, but it's to put you in the best position possible. And I don't think you don't do it for money. And no, I don't think anybody coaches for money because you don't get a lot of it. But that's how you know you're doing something that you love, because the reward is, it's not external. It's very internal emotions and what you can give back to other people. It's not nice cars and houses, unless you're at the very elite level.
I love that, and I think that's such a great quote within itself, but absolutely such a key point as well that you raise. And you're doing it for what you love, because at the end of the day, you're in a great position where you've got family, you're in a community where you have connections and you've got this experience and you're settled. But if you want to go into coaching and say women's coaching, it might be a job that might be 4 hours away from you in England, and it might enforce you to travel or move there, and by doing so that you leave your family and leave those roots and connections. But that might be a good thing, because you're uprooting from what you've always known and get to go in a new environment, whatever. But then it's hard because you're moving away from family and connections, but you're trying to do what's right for you, and it's hard because your heartstrings are maybe pulling, but then your sort of career passion, drive and energy and what you want to do is pulling you one way. But if you work out and get there, and you're doing it for the right decisions and for the right reasons, and that you're loving what you're doing every day, then that's the absolute reason why you're doing it. You're not going because, oh look, I've moved here and I'm earning this amount of money and this is my life. No, I love this, and you're talking about it, and money doesn't even factor into conversations, because your passion will come across for what you're doing every day beyond that. And hopefully that's where you can get to, Soph, and that it works out for you, because I think that you'd be a fantastic coach, because one thing that you have made me reflect upon is my quality of session planning, or the way that I try to do my sessions. And honestly, I've had an iPad and I don't use it much, but since I've seen your sessions and asking you what you use, it's made me try and use GoodNotes even better. My Apple Pen, my handwriting is a doctor's handwriting, shall we say. So I've had to try and refine it and use some of the tools. But your session planning has been some of the best sessions I've ever seen. And I think you have such a modern approach on them in terms of just the colour, the structure, utilising technology, and they're really vibrant and they are such quality plans. So honestly, you have made me think without you realising, and now I've tried to sit on my iPad and do sessions as good as yours. But you have some top quality sessions which you design week in, week out.
Thank you. I've been told that my session planning is too much by a few people, but it was actually by chance, because I was one of those people that when they brought out the Apple Pencil, I said I'm never spending that much money on, I've got pen and paper, I'm never spending that much money. And it was by chance that my iPad broke, so I went to get a new one, went in Curry's, and they said, oh, with this iPad, you get a free Apple Pencil. And I was like, oh, all right, why not? May as well, if it's free. And it was ages before I started using it. And then I saw that I could do my session plans. And it's just convenient to have them all, because they're on my iPad, then they're on your iCloud, and you can get them wherever. So as opposed to having, I'm sure we've all got folders, and even in this office here, I can see all the folders that I know are full of session plans, and that's so stressful. I'm like borderline OCD, so that's stressful to think of all the paper that you've got. So making everything digital, you can probably tell in my session plans that I am a little bit OCD, because I think I do try and get them, isn't it? They do take about 4 hours, but I think worth it.
Absolutely, and sometimes I'm sitting there, I'm like, how does Sophie get hers so neat? How's her writing so nice? And I'm like, my writing's all over the place, but honestly, they are quality, and I think that's another thing as well, is just adapting and taking that away and having that accessible, because I know I've had piles of paper, different pens, and I'm sitting there writing it out, and like, and then you've got files and folders, like, who has that many files and folders now? So it's just that, moving away and, having it on your iPad or having it available, but they're absolutely quality sessions and plans. So anyone listening, I think definitely check out Sophie on Twitter for her best session plans and the quality, and she has some fantastic sessions there, and honestly, I think that is something which is so great, and which is something that you do so well.
Thank you. It's nice. I think from just posting them, and you meet so many, like you get to meet so many different people, and you're in a whole new world of like coaches, and if I hadn't have ever posted that, I would never have been in that. So I'm very lucky that I've managed to connect with so many different people, and because that in itself pushes your career in a certain way.
I absolutely agree, and it's fantastic, reference point, because everyone can see what you're doing and can relate to that, and then it's a perfect example of what you put in, that time, that effort, the thought process, and the technical side of it. And when you say, look at those sessions, there's a lot of technical planning within that, as you can see, because they are just sessions, and you're not tactical coaching, which we're looking at, but you see on paper the technical side of it, and that is technical. That sessions are in that category. But if you had to describe yourself as a coach, or put yourself in a category, would you say you're more tactical, psychosocial, fitness coach, or would you say you're more balanced? How would you sort of pitch yourself? Or are you a combination of all the four corners, or is there one that you sort of move towards, or do you sit in the middle?
I think I'd like to say that I sit across all of it, but that's probably not the reality. Based on the teams that I've had and the players that I've had, I'm probably more technical, just because their development, that's where it needs to be most. I've had a lot of teams that, they can't pass the ball, they can't control the ball. So sessions are tailored towards that. And I think if they can't pass a ball over 30 yards, you can't really be very tactical with them, because they're not going to get it, and they need that foundation. And I think every good team needs to be like technically good enough. And for me, it drives me mad. People can't use both feet. That's just from why they're not kicking the ball with both feet. Even in the professional game, you see, who was it the other day? Somebody, yesterday, was it Chilwell? Somebody come across them, and it was on the weak foot, so they didn't shoot, they passed it. I think it was Chilwell. And I think, why? You should be able to shoot with your weak foot. And that winds me up so much. And as a player myself, I'm a bit of a 10, so I just pass the ball all the time. And I think from that's then the kind of coach that I am, where try and dip into everything, but technical first. And as you say, a lot of my sessions are designed like that. And try for my UAFB, everything tried to be in a bit of a phase, but just so difficult to get it like that when you've got 12 players, because it's then 6v6, and that's ridiculous.
And again, another valid point in itself. And when you have players who say can't pass with both feet, or don't have that technical ability, and they're struggling with 30-yard passes, and you say you've gone into teams where they haven't been maybe the most technical or quality team, but you've had some good players within that. Do you go in and with your set of session plans going, right, this is what I want to deliver in the program, or do you sort of go in, deliver a session, appraise what they can do, and then build upon that a program of sessions on the basis of what you've seen?
Yeah, definitely build a program. I went in with a session for the under 18s that I did, and the first session I did, I sort of looked and thought, right, this is too much for them already, and then you just strip it back. But then trying to get it fun, like for me, when you want to go to training, you want it to be a laugh and you want it to be fun, and that I think coming into a lot of my coaching, some of the best sessions I've had have been Christmas game sessions where you've done heads and volleys, and again, that's technical. Like you can't I don't underestimate the value of good technical ability, and then to be able to play heads and volleys and just have a laugh. I think there's nothing wrong with that. And I know my session plans are so detailed, but we get so caught up in what is a good session that what are the fundamentals of a session? I think are they having a laugh, and is it fun? Are they enjoying it? Do they want to come back? And have they gained something from it? Whether that's technical or tactical, whether that's a phase of play, or I think just having one or two outcomes from the session then allows you to build a program, and you think, right, over the course of the season, what do I want? So realistically, are we going to win the league? No, we're probably not going to win the league. But are we going to develop each week, and can they improve, and can that player positionally be in a better place than they are right now? And I think it's a lot of working individually when you've got a poorer quality team, because sometimes they need that extra bit of working. They don't understand the game necessarily, and they don't know what foul throw is, and all these little things. So I think build a program based on the team, and that's why I've struggled to have sort of develop my own personality within football, because I've constantly had to adapt for different teams.
And I think that's an important point in itself again, is, how that can look individually, and how that can really tailor the type of sessions that you deliver, and that planning that goes into it, especially around the quality, because sometimes you might plan out a program or have a series of sessions, and you might, try to deliver it or plan it in a way, but they might be so over technical that the players aren't able to grasp it. And sometimes stripping back down is hard, because you're like, right, this is going from high quality into maybe a basic session, but sometimes that's the best session that you can put on, because of the quality of players that are there. So once you see them technically developing, or you see those outcomes, and you're achieving those objectives that you've set, then over that time, then you start to increase the quality. And again, it's that time process which takes place, because we might want to try and accelerate where we want to be with the team, and where we want to be with the players, and what we want to do in our coaching, but sometimes just the technical ability doesn't allow us to get there. So we might have to spend more time reflecting upon that, and actually getting into it and working with those players individually before we actually try to accelerate. So it's walking before we can run it sometimes, and that seems a little bit odd when you're in a game that's based fully on running and positioning, but sometimes when you work with those different quality of teams and those levels, that's where you're at. So that's the sort of position where you've been in with the players that you work with, and hopefully you get to those high quality players and environments, which I think you're really going to get to. And this conversation without planning has sort of led us into the highs and lows of coaching, and sort of that journey and that position which is going to take us, and take you, and it's been very much focused about who Sophie is and where she's at, but we haven't even touched upon the technical side of coaching, and that would be a really good position to be in, but I think that's another episode within itself. But I'm glad that we could make this episode work. I'm glad that you could come on, and it's been a great natural conversation that we've had, so appreciate you coming on, especially on a Sunday morning, and it's much appreciated. But before I let you go, Sophie, I'm going to throw some quick fire questions at you, as I do with all coaches.
Stressful.
No problems at all. If you had to have someone describe you in 3 words, what 3 words would they be?
Organised. Probably organised 3 times. Organised. Honestly, that's about it. I'm organised.
Organised. Love that. Completely agree. If you could move to any country to coach, where would it be?
Ooh, America.
Love that. Good choice. If you could spend a day with any coach or manager, who would it be?
Guardiola.
Top choice. Who was or is your role model?
Sorry, say that again.
Who was or is your role model?
He's currently Guardiola. Easy.
Love that. Top choice, especially considering you're a Sheffield United fan.
Well, yeah, to be honest, back in the day it was Wilder. Chris Wilder. What he did with Sheffield United, role model at the time, definitely.
Love that. He's definitely done a good job, and hasn't done since going to Middlesbrough and so on. But who knows? A bounce back could be on at some point, and let's hope so. But Sheffield United have done well to get back in the Premier League with Paul Heckingbottom. Definitely caught my eye when they were in the Championship.
Yeah, playing well. We're going to go down this year. I put money on that. But we've excelled in certain places, and last year was a great season.
I think you'll do all right this year. I think so.
Really?
Yeah. I think if we look, I reckon Luton, Everton, and maybe Wolves will be in a relegation mix, and I think Sheffield will be just outside.
I think Everton deserves. I think it's Everton's time to go down now.
I think yes, they proved the point. When they had that goal cancelled out, and then they end up losing 1-0. I think it's just showing their position that they're not strong enough to stay up. And then why should they? Because what they have really achieved.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
If you had the choice of being a full-time professional footballer or a full-time professional coach at a younger age, and one was without injury, which one would you have picked?
Coach. I never ever wanted to play at any kind of level.
Yeah? Well,
yeah,
just show...
I enjoyed playing, but I always said from right when I started playing, I said that it's a hobby, it's not something I ever want to do.
And, again, shows why you love coaching and doing it for the right reason. So, that's completely where my mindset was at. I didn't have that much interest in trying to play at high levels or for senior teams. I just love coaching. And I know my mate has tried to get me back into it this year, I'm like, mate, I just don't have the enjoyment for training as a player myself. But if you ask me to deliver it, I'll say yes all the time. But playing, I think my time's over. And I'm only 26, but I've never really enjoyed playing as much as I have coaching.
Yeah, no, I'm the same.
If you could take any job in the world that was out there in terms of any coaching position, any coaching job, manager job, what job would it be?
It'd be a manager in the WSL, probably, maybe at Arsenal.
Good choice, very good choice. Top team, and hopefully you get there. Honestly, I really hope you do. Who is your all-time favourite player?
All time. Oh, wow. I'm trying to think of somebody that's not just it's not Messi. It's not. Think of a Sheffield United player that nobody else would think. Oh, we'll go Sheffield United, George Baldock.
Good choice. I remember George Baldock. What is your biggest pet peeve in coaching? I know you've already said a couple, but what is your biggest pet peeve?
From other coaches?
For yourself as a coach, anything that frustrates you? Your number one on your hit list?
The ignorance of other people around you.
Love that. I think that's such an important point. What is your favourite thing to do in your downtime?
Family, friends, holidays, anything like that.
Love that. I think that's brilliant. What is one book, if you could recommend one book?
One book, Relentless, Tim Grover, The PT of Michael Jordan.
Great choice, top book. What are your 3 non-negotiables?
Attitude, want to be there, do it with a smile on your face, and be on time.
Great choices, great choices. What does reflection mean to you?
Reflection is everything. I think before, after, constantly reflecting all the time.
Good, love that analogy. And what is one thing you enjoy most about coaching?
Players, seeing players develop, seeing players stay for the season when they told you at the beginning they didn't know if they want to play or not.
I think that wraps up such a great episode with you, Sophie, and I really appreciate it. And I hope you have such a lovely holiday next week. And best of luck in the game today for what's ahead. But I'm glad that we get this penciled in on a Sunday morning and make this happen. And something that I've wanted to happen. And the best session planner has finally appeared on the podcast, which is a huge accolade. But I really appreciate it, and it's a big thank you from me, Soph.
No, thank you for having me. It's been great. Really loved it.
Well, I'm glad. And take care, and I'll catch up soon with you.
Yeah, great to meet you.
And you. See you later. Bye.
Yeah. I understand, because I left my under-18s team there this summer, and that was for very similar reasons, because you have to think, how far can I go? I'm not going to get any further with the club that I play for and that I was at, and I'm still there now because obviously I don't play anymore, but I'll be finishing my UEFA B with them. I've just got one visit left where I'll do it with the team I play for. But yeah, you've got to decide. And I think if you do want to go far, and for me, it's a career.